So the very first thing is, no matter what hosting company you choose, usually they have either they'll install a WordPress installation for you, um, or they have a one button setup fee, or setup that they have available. So once you have that all ready to go and you have WordPress installed onto your domain, or even just have access to a dev site, you can roll from there.
Why doesn't this computer just work anymore?
You're working now, Mike.
You know?
You're working, Mike.
I'm so sick and tired of this thing not working the right way.
I think we might have to mute him because I don't think he can hear me.
Yeah. Oh.
He's my cousin-in-law.
Oh, okay.
I just might call him and just leave the phone sitting out so you can just listen. So let me do that. Mike. Okay, so anyways, so as far as your hosting goes, usually they'll have either one-click install or they'll install it for you, or you might work with a developer, and you can do that.
Hello?
There you go, Mike. So I'm gonna mute you, but at least you can hear me now. Does that work for you? So you can at least listen to me on your phone. I'll just hold this here.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to update my computer. It's still running a Windows 7.
All right, so
Master right now. So.
Mike's all taken care of now. Sorry about that. So going back to that, yeah, WordPress will be installed. Or you can get access to it. The installation can get a little tricky if you don't know exactly what you're doing, and you can install it from files. There's tons of tutorials out there on YouTube and things like that for it. But usually, a developer will help you set it up. Your hosting service will help you set it up. If not, find a hosting service that will help you set it up. That's a recommendation. So, why WordPress compared to I'll even say Wix, Squarespace, some of the other ones that are out there already. WordPress is, and this isn't the only reason to use it, but all the popular kids are using it. You should too. That's somewhat of a reason to do that. Actually, I think it's estimated that 40% of the web now is using WordPress. But what that means, though, is that there's going to be a ton of resources out there available. So if you do have a question, you can usually jump on a forum, Reddit. You can usually jump on LinkedIn. There's Facebook groups out there for that'll help you out. Just jump in. Hey, I'm wondering what the perfect size is for my banner. Something like that, and someone will be able to help you. And usually there's people out there that are more than willing to do so. There's also a lot of different, I'm going to call them attachments. They're called plugins that you can add to your site as well, that do a variety of things from making your site more SEO compliant to a contact form. I mean, you name it, there's a plugin for it. It's kind of like, the iPhone, there's an app for that. Well, with WordPress, there's a plugin for that. So that's another reason. And the last reason is because of the freedom and flexibility that you get with it compared to a Wix, a Squarespace, a Weebly. Those platforms are very limiting. I'm not dogging those platforms. They're great if that's all you're trying to do is just have a basic website with a small blog. Absolutely go for it. Those are probably going to be perfect for you. But if you're looking to do anything more than that or set yourself up for the long run, going with WordPress is the way to go. So that's my little bit of WordPress pitch there and why you should go with WordPress and compared to the others. So I'll get into what WordPress is and how to kind of work along the back scenes. But first, the very first thing that you need to do is log in. So again, this will usually be set up either by your hosting provider or your web developer. And you're going to go to your URL, whatever that is. So in this case, typically it's going to be .com, but I'm using I'll actually do a different one. I'm already logged in here. So typically what you're going to do is you're going to type in your URL and then wp-admin. But I'll go back to that development site that we were working with, so you can actually see. wp-admin. And that's how you get to your login screen for your WordPress. Now your username will be whatever your username is, or if you want to use your email address, whatever. Like I said, whatever you're set up with, and then your password. So pretty easy there. So this will bring you to the WordPress dashboard, and this is where you're going to access everything on how to work on your website. What makes up WordPress is two different styles of pages. And they're called pages and they're called posts. And the main difference in them is a page is typically going to be a landing page on your website. So you think about, I'll take Mike here as an example, who's an artist, who's a graphic designer, and also a very talented artist on Canvas and things like that. What a page for him would be his home page, probably an about page that tells a little bit about what he is, why he's, his background, whatever. And then he might have his contact page. Very simple 3-page website might be all he needs. But where the posts come into play is where he might want to highlight some of the projects that he's done. So a project might be, gummy worm on canvas, and he puts that, which is one of his pieces. I think that I'm probably butchering the name or probably butchering the type of material he used, but you get the point. That's where he posts pictures of that that artwork that he did to that post, because you can maintain a lot of different posts and you can put them in categories. So if he does canvas work compared to graphic design work, those might be two different categories that posts go into. Now, I'll go into that here for you. So I'm actually not going to use this website yet. I'm going to go into our website so you can get a little bit better of an idea. So we have a lot of different posts in our CourseVector.com website. Anywhere from highlighting some of the web design work that we've done to blog posts that'll help you about SEO. There's a ton of different things that we do here. And you can see that there's categories for it. We have a bunch of different categories. We have our news, SEO, web design. We have some web design tips. These are all categories, support categories. And how those work is, so I'll go back to the website and I'll access one of those categories. So we have our blog, for example. Now, blog is the parent category for a lot. So you see, for example, this is the very first post that we have right now in this category, this blog category. But you can see that this post belongs in more than one category. It belongs in the blog category and the hosting category. And again, you can access those by clicking on hosting. And you can see the different categories here. So that's kind of a way that you can separate your work. And these are all dated as well, typically. And that goes into the theme that you're working with. Typically, a theme will put a date at the top of your post because it's something that is dated and might fall off the face of the earth, in 3, 4, 5 years from now. But you might still want it on your website for whatever reason, for people to access in the future. So that's what posts are. And then pages are going to be your meat and potatoes of a website. So for example, I'll use our website, our homepage, our About Us page. So I'll go back to our example. And you can see here I have a homepage set up. a sample page set up, and you can view those here. So that's typically how those work. All right, so that's posts versus pages, and that's kind of how to separate those. And there's the two different sections in the dashboard. Get rid of that. In the dashboard to sort those. So you have your posts here, and you have your pages here. Again, that's how you separate them, and that's how, you know, and there's different ways you can get really creative with how you separate those, with you know, what a post is. News, projects, project gallery, events, you know, things like that. All right, so that's that. Next up on the docket, I'm glad I wrote all this down because I would have never followed it. I would have been bouncing all over the place. All right, and then we'll jump into the media. So the media is exactly what it sounds like. It's pictures, PDFs. Very simple to add, but these are used throughout your site. So I'll add let's choose a random picture. I'll use this picture of Doha from when I was deployed. So I added that to my media library. It's as simple as that. You select the files, or you can drag and drop. This also accepts PDFs, in case you want to link PDFs from your pages or posts. And then once you add that, sorry if I went above this. So when you want to edit a page or a post, you do the same thing. You go to the page and you can edit it by going to that. Now, WordPress recently, in the past 6 months, introduced a thing called Gutenberg, which is a block builder on the back end of sites, which makes it very easy to add content and allow you to kind of visualize how it's seen on your page. So all you need to do is, I have this coming soon because there's nothing on here, but if I want to add an image after that, I go to More Options, and then I'm going to insert, I'll add it above it, sorry. Insert before, and I'll hit this little plus button, and I can choose from a bunch of different options over here. But I just want to simply add an image, and you can either upload it or select from your media library, which I'll do. And there's my image, and I'll update my page in the top right-hand side. And when I'm done, I can hit view, and there's my image on my home page. So that's kind of how the media library works. Again, you can do the same exact thing with videos, pictures, and PDFs. You do that same exact steps. It's just a little...
Can you add music?
You can add music, yes. Yep. And I think it's a little bit different with how you add, or yeah, if you did a blog post and you recorded it, you can absolutely add that.
Yeah, music or voiceover or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So let's try that. I don't have an audio file, but I can at least hit this. Yeah, there it is. So there's, yeah, like I said, there's blocks in here. So if I added an audio block, and then I can either choose it or upload it. Or you can even insert from a URL. So if there's an audio file that I know that's sitting out there that I want to use for whatever reason, or same thing could go with images. You just have to make sure that if you're doing an image, you actually have the image URL and not the page URL that it's on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And always ask for permission, or link the image to the person that you're stealing it or borrowing it from, whatever. So I'll leave that. All right, so that's the media. And then there's the menus, which is very important for sites because some themes will automatically update menus. Some themes won't. Some themes have menus built directly into the theme, and you won't even touch this section. But typically, most themes will use this WordPress section. And I'll get into the themes here in a minute. So I don't have a menu at all yet. So I'm just going to create one. It's really easy. Primary.
Actually, let me ask a quick question.
Absolutely.
Where you had that picture, maybe you'll do this a little bit later on, but where you had that picture, what if you wanted to embed a video in there? You know, like you're going towards that on a boat or something. You know, it's not just a static image.
Yeah, so I will touch on that too. So let me go to, I'll just pick this random video. All right, so I grab the URL. By the way, another way you can access editing a page is by directly going to it once you're logged in. And you can actually hit this edit page button right at the top. So I'm going to go ahead into the Gutenberg video editor. I'm going to go to common blocks because I think, actually, I'm just going to search it. Here you go, media and text. Well, you know what? There's a couple different ways to do it. Let me go back to YouTube. I always suggest having a YouTube channel because, and I'll explain why here. You can embed videos directly from your media library into your site. I always suggest uploading them to YouTube first and then embedding them off of YouTube for a couple reasons. A, it's not going to take up storage on your hosting server. So if you only have, I don't know, 2 gigs of storage in your hosting plan, videos will chew that up very quickly because they're obviously bigger files. Another reason why is if you want any SEO, which stands for search engine optimization, it's what brings you higher in search engine rankings when someone searches for a specific keyword. So, for example, Michael does. I'm going to use you a lot, Mike. he does artwork. So he probably wants to be found for fine artist in Pennsylvania. That keyword, fine artist in Pennsylvania. So when someone searches for that on Google, he wants his name up there. So he can get found and so he can sell his product. Because the easiest way to sell your products or services is by the people that are already searching for your products and services. YouTube is a Google product. Now, Google will never come out and say this, but I've done testing and found it to be true from the SEO clients that we work with. And that is, if the more Google products that you use on a site, the more they're going to pat you in the back and increase your rankings. So YouTube being a Google product, put your videos on YouTube and then embed them from there. And like I said, it's not going to chew up room on your server, which is a huge plus, and then you're going to gain a little bit of that SEO value from using a Google product.
Okay.
And there's people searching directly on YouTube for videos, which is another reason why. So you're going to be hitting on not only the Google search engine, but you're also going to be hitting on, for your site, but you're also going to be hitting on, I mean, YouTube is essentially another search engine, so you're going to be found there as well.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Chris, Larry told me that my file would just like bog down, my video file would just bog down the system and not work correctly versus just pointing it to YouTube, which I did, and it worked seamlessly. It was just too large a file for what it would take, and I was very surprised at how easy it was. I've never had a video on, I watch video on YouTube, but I've never hosted one. And you just put the link in and then do this WordPress. It was very seamless.
It is. And you bring up another good point too, and that's the hosting. It's more than just your storage that you get with your hosting plan. It's also the bandwidth that you're choosing. You're going to be chewing up as well. Typically, hosting plans will tell you you're only allowed 1 gigabyte of transfer a month, or whatever the case may be. And videos will bog your site down. And depending on what hosting service that you're using, you're either going to get completely shut off, or you're going to get throttled so bad to the point where no one's going to want to ever visit your website again. So Chris, you bring up a very good point with that. But embedding YouTube videos, if we're going to go that route, very easy. I've been getting into photography lately, so you can see him. I'll go to this photographer here.
Right before we jump into
and I will. There's a share button usually on these, and all you have to do is click that, and then there's an embed code. And this right here is what you're going to want to copy and paste to your page. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. But when you do that, you have to make sure you use the right block. If you use a paragraph block, that will not work. You have to use a custom HTML because you're embedding an HTML code, and you just paste it in there. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky because you're going to want to play with the width and height of things. And this same exact thing goes with, well, it used to go with images, but the block editor made it a lot easier. This right here, if you delete height, which I'm going to do, and I always do when I embed any iframe code, and the reason why is because I want it to be, I take that back. I do it for about 90% of the embed codes I use. I delete that height because I want it to be scalable. And what I mean by that is, take this YouTube video, for example. If I put it in there as 560 pixels by 315 pixels, no matter what screen you're accessing it from, it will always be that size. Versus, if I get rid of this, you can actually type in a percentage. So I want it to be 50% of the screen width. And I'll go ahead and update that. Now, as my screen gets larger and smaller, which I will show you, the video scales with it.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't know why it's getting cut off at the bottom. That shouldn't happen.
Okay, because I've been to sites where it'll have a video and it'll only be like half of it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I see why. Okay, cool.
Let's go ahead and update that to 100% because that's usually what you want it to be. Yeah. Now it's getting cut off at the bottom, so I think that's because I got rid of that height, but that shouldn't ever be the case. Let's just say 100% as well, so that way it covers the video. Yeah, it's getting... I don't use this theme that I'm using. I don't usually use, and I'm guessing that's where the issue is coming into play.
Because maybe you're just doing horizontal instead of and vertical, you know, missing the vertical part.
Well, that's the thing. So typically, how HTML works, when you're setting a width and a height of something, if you don't have a height, like if you don't have a, I'm going to use this exact image as an example. Remove block. If you don't have a height set and only a width set, it'll automatically scale accordingly. And the same vice versa. So if you only have the height set and not the width set, it should automatically scale. That's how HTML code works, which is really cool. That's why I usually always only pick either width or height. I usually drop one of them. So, and as you work with WordPress, it is definitely something to learn is some HTML. It's pretty basic. It's not as difficult as it might seem, like it, you know, as it sounds. Oh, I have to learn code. It's not scary. I can promise you. I'm gonna grab that. Oops. And there's a ton of sites out there that have tutorials on how to do it.
Okay.
So I'm going to remove this so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here with this width. I'm actually going to make it, let's say, 30% just to and update it. Now you can see that this image is only 30%. Well, it's stacking itself because it's not a separated line. I'll get rid of this too because we don't need it. Update view page. There we go. So again, 30% width of the screen, and it'll scale as the screen gets larger and smaller.
Cool.
So that's some HTML to learn. All right. So that's media. I think I've gone over menus. Or no, you asked me that question, then we got into that. So I'll go back to menus.
Thanks.
This is very easy to once you have your menu created, it's very easy to add pages to it, and sub pages to it. And again, it depends on your theme and how much you can nest these pages. Typically, themes only allow 2 levels of nesting, and what I mean by that is the one that's displayed, followed by the one underneath, followed by a third one. So that's the first and second layer of nesting. So I don't know how this theme is gonna work with this menu, but I'll at least create the menu just so you can see it. And all you have to, and then it's drag and drop at this point. So that's nesting it inside the home page, and I want to nest it further, or I want them all to be their own separate menu items. So that's how menus work. You can also add your categories. So, for example, if I had a news category, whatever, project category, whatever the case may be, you can add categories directly from here as well. So I'll add that one. Sure, why not? I'll nest it. And then you can add custom links. So let's say you're trying to link to your Facebook page, or you have a sister or a brother or sister website that you're trying to link to as well. You can link directly. You can link to a custom page in your own. And add that to your menu as well. And that can be used for a bunch of different reasons. You can also add your posts, which I don't really recommend doing to a degree. It depends how many posts you have. If it's a very important post that you need in your menu, absolutely go ahead and add it. Or if you only have 5 or 6 posts that you want to add, go for it. But typically, I don't recommend it, and for the only reason why is because I recommend instead adding the category that post involves in to the menu. It's an extra click a person has to take to get to your website, but it allows your website to scale. If you start adding 30 million posts to your menu is going to get obnoxious and huge. I mean, I'll be honest, I look at our course vector menu, and it's huge. Granted, we have a lot of information and we do a lot of different things, but it's quite large and can get confusing at times for people. We take that risk because we want people to be able to find stuff that they need. Essentially, you want to keep your menu pretty short and simple. If you're thinking about your end user when you're building a site, you want the user to be able to access whatever you're trying to get them to in no more than 2 clicks is ideal, 3 clicks maximum. So if I want somebody to find our hosting support, for example, I'm going to click support. These are all our hosting categories, but hosting support, here it is. Or if I want someone to find how to add email to their. All right, so I'm going to say, all right, email support, because that's where I need. All right, how do I add my email? Okay, here it is. Set up email. How do I, perfect. That's what I'm looking for. And I always recommend having a search on your site as well. Unless, of course, your site's really small and you can pretty much get to everything that you need to in one click. In which case you don't need a search. The larger your site gets, the more the search is needed, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And that search is usually done through whatever theme that you're using. There is custom code out there, and I cannot remember it off the top of my head. For if your theme doesn't have it, there's what's called short codes that WordPress has built right into it that allow it. And that'll actually bring me. I'm going to skip themes. I'm going to go right into plugins. I'll get to themes at the end because I want to go off that point of short codes. So plugins, like I said. iPhone, there's an app for that. Plugins, there's a plugin for that. So if I want to add a slider to my website, an image slider. I'm just going to search slider or image slider. And there's tons of options out here, as you can see. Now, you have to be careful because just like the iPhone App Store, a lot of these are what you would call freemium. Where they hook you with a couple free features and they try to get you with a purchase of their premium plan, which these developers are putting their heart and energy into this, so that if you like what they're giving, absolutely go for it. But do your research when you're adding a plugin. For example, I'll take this image slider as a prime example. When I look for an image slider to add, or a plugin of any sort, I always look for a couple different things. And the three things that I look for are: how many active installations are there? When was it last updated? And is it compatible with the version? I look at this right here and the ratings, because the active installations will tell you immediately, okay, this is obviously a very good plugin to use because there's 4 million plus people using it. The last updated, again, WordPress is, because of its popularity, like I said, 40% of the web is on there. There's tons of, not tons of, I would say there's a lot of vulnerabilities that people will try to get into your site with. So you have to make sure that whatever plugin that you're adding to your site is kept updated regularly, or is such a basic plugin that it might not matter if it hasn't been updated for a few years. And that's where you need to go and look in the reviews, the recent reviews, because people will say, oh yeah, I got hacked through my plugin on this site. Which brings me to another point. When you do have a website, WordPress site, make sure you have some security plugins installed. There's a bunch out there. WordFence, Akismet are just a few that I know off the top of my head. There's, like I said, there's a ton of them out there. Make sure you have one installed, and make sure you're not using, and that goes with the security. Make sure you're using somewhat of a decent password on your WordPress login, because it will get exposed, or it can get exposed very easily. As soon as someone finds out your site is a WordPress site, a hacker at least, they'll run through a bunch of different attacks on your site, and you just got to make sure that you're using up-to-date plugins and up-to-date passwords, and you have the security measures in place. So I hope I didn't scare anyone there with that one. But let's go ahead and there's SEO plugins, Yoast, all-in-one. This is the one that we personally use. There's plugins out there to make your site go faster. You have to be careful with how many plugins you add to your website. Typically, I like to have no more than 20, and that's really pushing it. Ideally, I'd like to have 10 or less. It might not be possible because some of the things that I know how to do, like I know how to custom code something, so I don't need a plugin for it. Versus, Mike or somebody else who's not a web developer by nature, and, they need to go out and find a plugin, which is fine, but just make sure you kind of limit how many you use. It'll bog down your site, and it'll open your site up for security holes, and a bunch of other reasons, which I can get into, but I can't. That'll be a whole other rant. And actually, one last good reason is that plugins a lot of the times will sometimes compete with each other or interfere with each other, which brings into troubleshooting. If you ever do run into a problem on your WordPress site, the very first thing that I always recommend doing is disabling all of your plugins and then enabling them one at a time. Okay, and then, that one caused the problem. And then either figure out a new plugin to use or reach out to that plugin developer, which will usually fix it.
Hey Josh, about the plugins, is it really worth the upgrade? Because I just looked I have WordForce, and it says go to the premium package for $99 a year. But what's the real difference? I know it's very different with each plugin, but is it usually the basic package they give you worth it, or should we look into upgrading?
It depends on the plugin. So like I said, that's one of those freemium plugins. Chris, for you, we and all of our hosting clients that are on what's called our managed hosting plan, we actually use the free version of WordFence because we made a bunch of changes to yours, Chris. We actually have a code that we use when we first initially install that brings across all of our settings and make sure that it's the same across all of our sites. And we do things on the server level to you where premium is not needed.
Okay,
For other
thank you.
sites, absolutely. For other sites, if you're on a bigger, one of the big box hosting companies, absolutely you might want to go for that. Again, it depends on your website too. If you're running you know, if all you're doing is displaying your artwork, do you really care if your site gets hacked into? I mean, yes, you do. You don't want those people in there, but is it really the end of the world? Are you going to lose millions
It's
of dollars in
it's
sales?
it's not the end of the world. I agree with you. It's
You
like
know,
it's a minor inconvenience
it
for
is.
me.
So you have to take that into a grain of salt as well. But that brings into, I guess, one more plugin that you should always have installed on your website, and that is a backup plugin of some sort. There's a ton of them out there. I personally use Updraft. WordPress backups. But make sure that you're always having a backup, and make sure that you're pulling those backups either to your local server or putting them up in the cloud somewhere, or local machine, your laptop, your desktop, or putting them up in the cloud somewhere. Because if that does happen and you get hacked, yes, it's inconvenient, but at least you have something to go back to and you're not starting from scratch. Because that's what will happen. Chris, you don't
Sorry
have
for all the
anything.
questions.
You don't have anything
Where
to worry
does
about
the
there.
where does the yeah, where can you tell? I just did a backup on my the backup site that you plugin you told me to. But how do you know where it's going to? It's
So,
backing up, but I can't see where it's going to.
So Chris, we actually, well, if you're on our managed plan, we do automatic backups. That's another thing too. For hosting, sometimes your host will have a managed WordPress or automatic backup WordPress plan. I highly suggest getting on those if you do have a WordPress site, because your backups will be managed by your hosting company. You don't have anything to worry about. You can let them do the work. That's what we do for you, Chris. We actually have all your backups sitting out in Amazon on their servers, and we actually bring down a backup once every 6 months to our local machine, which is in the basement of our of our CEO's house. So your backups are in a couple
Well, that's
different
great,
places.
perfect. See, that's the beauty of going to a guy like Larry. He takes care of, and you through your relationship take care of everything.
Yep. So you're all set there. But yeah, find a hosting service that has a backup, or find a way to do it yourself. Like I said, there's a ton of options out there, but make sure that you're downloading that backup to your laptop or desktop, because if a hacker gets into your site, they're going to screw around with the backups as well. They're either going to delete them or manipulate them, whatever the case may be. Depending on your site, backup once every 6 months to a year. If you really want to take that, go that far back. It depends on how much you update.
I have a question. Can I ask you right now?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So, is there any way I can check whether a plugin will give me a fatal error or not? Because just a couple of days ago, I was trying to install a plugin called Facebook for WooCommerce, and the moment I installed it, it gave me a fatal error. Means my site got crashed. And then again, I have to, I had to retrieve the data and all. But I am again scared because that is an important plugin for my business to connect Facebook, Instagram, and my website.
Absolutely.
So, is there any way I can, before installing, I can be sure, this is a safe plugin to install? No way.
It depends.
It depends.
Yeah. So some hosting services will offer what's called a staging site, which can be helpful to do things like that. Unfortunately, that's another thing too. You have to look at this line right here. Is it compatible with my version of WordPress? That's another thing to look for too. There's no perfect there's no perfect way to say yes, this plugin's not going to work, or yes, this one will.
And how do I make it work if it's not working? Because that's an important plugin.
You'd have to either probably. There's a lot of digging into that. I would either say I would recommend either reaching out to your hosting company or reaching out to your developer.
All right. Okay.
I could. There's so many ways to troubleshoot. Another way that you can test as well, like I said, sometimes plugins fight with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Deactivate all your other plugins.
Okay.
Activate that one. Activate that one and the ones that it needs. So, for example, that one's Facebook for WooCommerce. So you probably need your WooCommerce plugin activated with that. And
I
then,
have it.
yep. And then see, okay, so if I activate this plugin, okay, nope, I'm good there. And then just work through your plugins one by one until you figure out, okay, yep, this is the one that it's competing with. So, for example, if
Okay.
it was a form plugin, I'm just throwing an example out there. Let's say it's a form plugin that Facebook one was clashing with. Well, maybe you can find a different form plugin. Or reach out
Oh,
to the developer of the form plugin and say, hey, your plugin's clashing with this one.
okay. Okay. I'll try that. Yes. Thank you.
Yep. And then the last one is themes. There's a ton of them out there. You have to be careful, though, which ones you choose. And I'll go into that. There's a lot of drag and drop themes. I think... Let's go to the most popular ones. Elementor, I think, is one of them. You have to be careful with the theme and how much it affects your website. Themes can absolutely destroy a website's speed. And what I mean by that is they're not coded well. And it'll take your website... we use a program called GT Metrics to measure site speed, which is not the same as when you access the site because they use it on strictly... they basically say, okay, it's only going to access the website at this speed, so it's strictly tested, same across the board, so that way it's reliable data. But we've seen websites that have had 10-second load times on that on that GT metrics reports, which will kill your site. And any advantage that you want to try and gain in search engine rankings for SEO or even your user experience. The longer your site takes to load, the further down in ranks you will go, and that's straight from Google's mouth. And then on top of that, if your user, so let's say if I go to a random website and it takes forever to load, and I immediately leave because I'm like, I don't have time for this. That's going to kill your bounce rate. That'll jack that up in the air, which is not good for your site at all. It's not going to hurt you or your site essentially, but it's just not good for your user experience. And another thing too is that everybody is using these things nowadays, phones, to access the internet. So if you want, and people on phone connections don't always have the fastest speeds, so you have to make sure that you're aware of that when you're building out your site. The same thing goes with images. When you put an image on your site, and I'll go back to that real quick too, because that's very important. I'm going to go ahead and add that image again, because I want to show you something here. Insert after. So if I want this image on my site, I have to be very careful with how large of an image I'm putting here. There's image sizes here, which is full size. You see here that this is a 2500 by 1100 pixels image. Well, not everyone's screen is that large. In fact, most of the web is on 1920 by 1080p, which is HD. That's what most people are accessing the web via with. So you don't need to go 2500 pixels. That's 600 pixels wide more than you need. So pull those image sizes back to 1920. Let's say, I don't know. I don't want to stretch it, which is what I just did. But here we go. I can go here. There's different ways that you can do this, but I always recommend using the large size or smaller. And that's just because, like I said, not everyone's accessing not everyone needs a massive image. And usually websites nowadays are, even if you do have a huge screen, like I do, I have a massive monitor that I use. And I'm used to websites being only in the middle part of my screen by about 1200 to 1400 pixels wide. So that's about as wide as you need to go, really. And like I said, usually your theme will be set up by your developer, or not your hosting company in this case, but your developer if you work with one. And that's about it. If you do want to add a new theme, I'll go ahead and show you how to install one. It's very easy too. I'll just install this Elon one here. It's the first one I happen to catch. So I install it and I want to activate it. It's really as simple as that. There's usually customization options. And this right here, this customization is going to vary from each and every theme that you use. Sometimes this menu that you see here on the left-hand side is standard with WordPress. Sometimes the theme won't even use that at all. You can still access this page, but any changes that you make here won't actually make a change to your website. Some of it's done actually within the theme itself, which, again, it depends on the theme that you use. And this is where it gets really custom once you get there. But again, you can see that menu that I made up here.
So, Josh?
Yep.
So then if you have, let's say you have a pretty full web page and you want to change the theme, does everything move over?
No. And it depends on your theme. So some themes use what's called a page builder. For example, Chris, I know that Larry uses one. He uses what's called Enfold is one of the themes that he uses. And he uses it alongside of what's called an Avia page builder, which injects a bunch of code into the back end of your site, which is fine. It's good. It's just to be able to easily manipulate things. But when you transfer that, I will use our website as an example, because we use a page builder ourselves. We use a page builder called Offsprout. But I will go ahead and edit this page. And you can see here that it immediately tries to tell me to launch the builder. I won't, just because I want you to see exactly what I'm talking about. When it says if you just throw a new theme on here, it will absolutely not work. Yeah. So you can see how much it throws off all the spacing. There's random code thrown in there. And this is what will transfer the new theme if I go ahead and do that. So I'm not going to save this. I'm going to X out of here before I do.
So how do I get around that, Josh, with the Enfold? Because that's what I use for my site. They say I want to try a different one, because I tried different ones just to poke around and see the difference. And the code just didn't match up, like you said.
It depends on the theme that you're using too. So like I think that Avia or that Enfold theme uses what's called the Avia page builder. So you would have to find an Avia page builder compatible theme in your case. There's other builders out there like Beaver Builder. I think Offsprout does have a page builder itself as well. You know, that's out. Offsprout has a theme and a page builder. I think they have a page builder as well. So if I did want to change it, I've never actually tested it. If I did want to change this theme, I would probably have to make sure that the page builder was still installed. Again, that's where it gets really tricky. I usually, when we build websites, when I build a website, I usually stick to only. Here's the thing: this homepage is very custom. I mean, you can see all the different styles and things that we've used on this, so that's where the page builder really comes in handy. But outside of that, like if I'll go to a standard blog post, there's not much styling going on there. That's a bad example. There's not much styling going on there. You know, it's just pretty much text and a couple images. We try to stick with the page builder. Or, I'm sorry, we try not to use the page builder for that. We try to use the... See, in this case we did, because this is a more complex page. Bad example, Josh. Here's a simple page. No, it's not.
Feel free to use mine if you want. It's pretty basic, but I don't know if it suits your needs.
There we go. Yeah, that's not as simple a one either. Well, anyways, what I'm getting to is I'll go back to here. Instead of using the page builder, I use the block editor instead, which we usually fall into the theme without a problem. So we use the Gutenberg block editor, which will transfer to other sites no problem, or to other themes no problem. So unless you need a bunch of customization, try to stick within this Gutenberg block builder as much as you possibly can. And if it gets to the point where you can't get what you're trying to do, then use those builders if you have to. But that's typically a best practice. That way, if you ever do switch your theme, you only have to copy and paste and recreate 4 or 5 pages versus your whole entire website. Does that make sense?
It does. It's a little above my knowledge base, but I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah.
So then let me ask then, let's just going along with what he was saying. You're playing around and you just want to see what your site's going to look like with another theme. And then you hit the wrong button and you transfer. So since it messes up, it could mess up the, like the how it looks. But what about the pages that didn't transfer? Do they just disappear into the ether?
No, they'll just be filled with random code.
Oh.
And that's why if you ever do decide to switch your theme, always, I always recommend this. If you're ever going to make any kind of major change or even a minor change, it doesn't hurt to create a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Back it up, okay. Save it to your site, save it to your computer, and that's another thing too. When you're choosing a backup plugin, make sure it has something that you can easily restore from too. You're not jumping through 10 million hoops to try and restore your site. But yeah.
Save it on something external or save it to like Google Drive or something?
It depends. Like I said, like the Updraft plugin will let you save it directly on your WordPress installation, but that's not useful if it gets hacked because that person will delete it.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
Save it to your desktop.
Dropbox or something, or desktop.
Get an external hard drive. Just have it store all of your WordPress backups. And like I said, we only archive about 2 years worth of backups. Outside of that, anything outside of 2 years is pretty much, you're going to be going back to square one if you do something like that, that drastic. Another useful tool, and this is just kind of a interesting tool, is called the Wayback Machine. If you've ever heard of it, it's just really fun. It's really fun to play with sometimes.
Sites from years ago. It's cool.
Yeah, you can go see what Google looked like back in 1998. But usually that has a good archive of your website too.
Oh, okay.
There's Google back in 98. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yep. So. Does anyone have any questions about anything else?
No, I appreciate your time and going through this. I'm just a novice learning all. Larry set it all up for me, and I'm just doing the updating. But this is good information. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Not exactly a question. It's just if you somehow plan or wish to do a meeting like this on SEO, just do let us know.
I absolutely would love to.
Thank you.
I was actually thinking about doing this maybe every other week.
Oh, great.
Once a month, maybe every other week during this whole coronavirus thing when I'm stuck at home anyways. But when this whole thing maybe lets up, maybe once a month, I will point you in the right direction. I will give a little bit of advice on SEO for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is to be authentic with your content, and make sure that you're not over optimizing, and find a plugin that works for you. We've used Yoast, we've used All-in-One SEO Pack, we've used the SEO Framework. Each of them have their own advantages.
I use Yoast, and each my post has a red face.
Okay, so that's where to start. And that's another thing too. Those plugins like Yoast, SEO Framework, All-in-One SEO, All-in-One SEO, they all have their own systems that they use. You have to take each of them with a very small grain of salt. So Yoast will say, hey, you need to make sure that you're using the right language and you're not using passive voice in all of your posts. Which to me, I think that's BS. Write how you're going to write. Write how your clients want you to, represent. You want to be you. And that's another thing too is the keywords. Make sure that you're hitting those, and finding the right keyword is huge.
Right. And, where generally do you find the keywords? Google Console or Google Analytics?
So, well, those both don't give you the keywords.
Okay.
There's a
Where do you put the keywords in on the WordPress?
on Yoast. There's for example, there's a little place that you can put a keyword in on your page, and it'll tell you how your page is optimized for that. I'd probably recommend Yoast for everyone on this phone call.
Yeah, I do.
As you get more advanced, the SEO Framework is a great one. It's a little bit more built for developers and more SEO specialists like myself. It's usable, but it's a little bit more, I would say, bare bones. It's not as colorful and easy to use as Yoast is. And the all-in-one SEO, I haven't had too much experience with it. It's another one, but like I said, I can't speak to that one because I've only used it once or twice for maybe a month. I'm just testing it out. And that's like I said, use those Yoast bullets, those green bullets that you're trying to hit. Use those with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I've never reached green.
Yep, and you don't have to. Honestly, some of my best performing posts have had 3 or 4 red bullets. Believe it or not.
All of mine have red bullets.
But it's finding that right keyword, and the best way to do that is to search. So this is a great tool to use to find out what people are searching for. So obviously right
Google
now,
Trends. Okay.
Google Trends, and you can.
Okay.
And it'll tell you, okay, how many people search for artists in PA over time.
Okay.
Not too many. This is a great way to do it. Another way to find one is, so let's say, Pooja, if you don't mind, what's a product or service that you offer?
Oh, I sell sterling silver jewelry.
Sterling silver jewelry? Okay, so if I'm going to start sterling silver, so here you go. So here's another great tool that you can use, because Google predicts based on what people are searching. And it also gives you a lot of great long tail keywords for this.
Okay.
There's the big hat keywords, which is for you is going to be jewelry, if I can spell it. That's kind of the main keyword that probably your competitors you are using. It's going to be very competitive, so you have to figure out your niche in that. So you have to find out, okay, am I going to be sterling silver online cheap? I don't know if your products are cheap or expensive.
No, it's expensive.
But you get my, well, then you might want to go
I got it.
luxury,
Yeah.
Or throw luxury in front of the keyword. You have to find, you can't just go out and say, I want to rank for sterling silver jewelry, because that'll never happen. You have to start ranking for the smaller stuff first, those longer tail, that's what we call them, long tail keywords first, before you start taking on the big guys.
Okay.
So, and you also have to take into account, is my time and energy worth optimizing my site? And that's a serious question that we always have to ask ourselves when we're going. Like I said, I'm an SEO specialist. I'm also a salesman. I want to sell that service, but I don't want to sell it just for the sake of selling it. I want to make sure that our clients are actually going to see, some type of gain from that. So I have to say, if you came to me and said, hey, I sell sterling silver jewelry, the very first thing that I'm going to do is say, okay, how competitive is this market? And what's even the base budget that she would need to compete here? And it could be anywhere from $100 a month to $10,000 a month. And that's the very first thing I do when I come back and I say, hey, if you want to compete in this market, this is how much it's going to be. Do you want me to move forward with, with doing an analysis on your site or something like that? Or can I help you find a different way to market? Because you tell me that you want to rank for aspirin, I'm going to laugh at you. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
It is. But if you're a small pressure washer in Maryland, absolutely. That's a local business. That's something that you can hit hard on all day.
Okay.
Does that help a little bit?
Oh, a lot. Yes.
Oh, good. and what
Thank you.
mean by that is by spending them as much energy. If your energy and time is spent better networking in Facebook groups rather than going through all your pages and trying to optimize them, or learning Facebook ads and really hitting those hard, or learning, that's, you got to find your niche.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.